くりレ夢ムです。ゆっくりマリサだぜ。
Hi, Raimo. Hi, Marissa. Hey guys. He sentence that broke logic itself.
ゆっくりしていってね。
Section 1. Hook. Read this sentence carefully. This statement is a lie. Simple enough, right? 5 words. A third grader could say it. Now try to figure out if it's true that if the statement is true, then what it says is correct, which means it really is a lie, which means it's false. But if it's false, then what it says is wrong, which means it's not a lie, which means it's true. True means false. False means true. Round and round. Forever. This is not a trick. This is not wordplay. This is a logical contradiction so deep and so serious that it caused a crisis in mathematics. It forced some of the greatest thinkers in human history to completely rethink what truth even means, and it's still not fully resolved at us. Oh, how does one sentence, 5 words, bring the entire structure of logic to its knees? That's the case we're investigating today. Section 2. The story begins. The story begins not in a university, not in a philosophy department, not in a mathematics lecture hall. It begins on the island of Crete. Around 600 BC, a man named Epimenides, a poet, a philosopher, a Cretan himself, makes a simple declaration. All Cretans are liars. Think about that for a second. Epimenides is a Cretan. He's saying all Cretans are liars, which means he's a liar, which means what he just said is a lie, which means all Cretans are not liars, which means he's telling the truth, which means all Cretans are liars, which means, you see the problem. For centuries, this was treated as a philosophical curiosity. Clever, amusing, something academics would debate over wine and then move on from. Nobody thought it was dangerous. That was a mistake, because roughly 2,500 years later, a mathematician named Bertrand Russell was trying to do something that seemed completely unrelated. He was trying to build mathematics from scratch, from pure logic, with no assumptions, no intuitions, no shortcuts. Just airtight rules all the way down. It was 1901. Russell was one of the most brilliant minds alive, and he was making tremendous progress. Then he found the village, not a real village. A thought experiment, a hypothetical place that would eventually be called the barber's paradox. And it stopped him cold. Here's the setup. Imagine a village. In that village, there is exactly one barber. And this barber follows one strict rule. He shaves everyone in the village who does not shave themselves. And he shaves only those people. So if you shave yourself, the barber leaves you alone. If you don't shave yourself, the barber shaves you. Clear rule. No exceptions. Now, one question. Who shaves the barber? If the barber shaves himself, then by the rule, he shaves only people who don't shave themselves. So he can't shave himself. Contradiction. If the barber doesn't shave himself, then by the rule, he must be shaved by the barber. But he is the barber, so he shaves himself. Contradiction. Either way, the logic breaks. The village cannot exist. The rule is self-destroying. Russell had just found the liar's paradox hiding inside mathematics itself, and that changed everything. Section 3. The evidence. Let's build the case step by step, because the evidence for how deep this mystery runs is genuinely shocking. First piece of evidence. Russell's letter. In 1902, Bertrand Russell wrote a letter to Gottlob Frege, another brilliant mathematician who had spent years building a complete logical foundation for all of mathematics. Frege had just finished volume 2 of his masterwork. It was about to go to the printer. Russell's letter pointed out that Frege's entire system, years of work, contained the same contradiction at its core. The logical version of the liar's paradox was embedded inside Frege's rules. The foundation was cracked before the building was finished. Frege's response is one of the most heartbreaking sentences in the history of mathematics. He wrote back, "Hardly anything more unfortunate can befall a scientific writer than to have one of the foundations of his edifice shaken after the work is finished." He never fully recovered from it. His system was abandoned. The paradox had claimed its first major victim, but that's where things became truly strange. Second piece of evidence, the attempt to fix it. Russell didn't give up. He spent the next decade, along with Alfred North Whitehead, trying to build a new logical foundation for mathematics, one with enough rules to prevent the paradox from sneaking back in. They published their result in 1910, 3 enormous volumes, called Principia Mathematica. Famously, it took them hundreds of pages before they could even formally prove that 1 + 1 = 2, that the system was incredibly complicated. It worked mostly, but it felt like building a bomb shelter around a crack in the floor instead of fixing the crack, and other mathematicians noticed. The paradox hadn't been solved. It had been contained. Barely. At first, nobody thought containment could fail. But then an investigator appeared who would prove them wrong. Third piece of evidence. Gödel walks in. 1931 Vienna. A 25-year-old mathematician named Kurt Gödel publishes what is now considered one of the most important papers in the history of human thought, his incompleteness theorems. And what Gödel did, the elegant, devastating thing, was take the liar's paradox and translate it into pure mathematics. He found a way to make a mathematical statement that essentially said, this statement cannot be proven. If the statement is false, then it can be proven. But then you've proven something false, which breaks mathematics. That if the statement is true, then it cannot be proven, which means mathematics has true statements it can never prove. Either way, mathematics is incomplete. There will always be true things that cannot be proven within the system. Always. No matter how many rules you add. No matter how carefully you construct the foundation. The liar's paradox, dressed up in mathematical language, had just proven that mathematics could never fully prove itself. The mathematical world was stunned. Fourth piece of evidence. It breaks computers too. Alan Turing, the father of modern computing, was one of the first people to fully absorb Gödel's result. And in 1936, he used the same logical structure to prove something about computers before computers even existed in any practical form. That he asked, can you build a program that looks at any other program and tells you whether it will finish running or loop forever? This is called the halting problem. And Turing proved, using a direct logical descendant of the liar's paradox, that such a program is impossible. You cannot build it. Not because we haven't tried hard enough. Because the attempt itself generates the same self-referential contradiction that if the program says, this program will halt, then you can make it loop. If it says, this program will loop, then you can make it halt. The program defeats itself. The liar's paradox, which started on a Greek island 2,600 years ago, is now hardwired into the fundamental limits of what computers can and cannot do. Section 4. Theories to S. Oh, what is actually going on? People have proposed serious answers to the liar's paradox for centuries. Let's examine the strongest ones. Theory 1. The sentence is simply meaningless. This is the most common dismissal. The argument goes, this statement is a lie, isn't actually a real statement at all. It looks like one. It has grammar. It has words. But it fails to refer to anything outside itself, so it's not saying anything real. It's like the sentence, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Grammatically fine, completely empty. The strength here is that it sidesteps the problem entirely. If the sentence means nothing, there's no paradox. Nothing to solve. The weakness is that this feels like a cheat. The sentence clearly does something. It creates a problem. Saying it doesn't mean anything doesn't explain why it creates the problem, or prevents similar self-referential statements from showing up in logic and mathematics, which they very much do. Theory 2. Truth has levels, and self-reference breaks the levels. This was the approach of Alfred Tarski, a Polish-American logician working in the 1930s. His solution was elegant. He said, truth is not a single thing. There are levels. A statement at level 1 can be evaluated at level 2. But no statement can evaluate itself at its own level. Self-reference across levels is simply forbidden by definition. This statement is a lie. Fails not because it's meaningless, but because it tries to be its own judge, which the rules don't allow. This is the solution that mathematics largely adopted, and it works within formal mathematical systems. You build the rules carefully so that self-reference of this kind is impossible. The weakness? In ordinary language, the language we use every day, we can enforce levels. People can and do make self-referential statements all the time. The paradox lives on in the wild, even if we've caged it inside math. Theory 3. The sentence is both true and false simultaneously. This might sound crazy, but it's a serious academic position called dialetheism. The view that some contradictions are simply and genuinely true. The philosopher Graham Priest has argued this formally. Some statements, he claims, are true and false. Logic needs to be rebuilt to accommodate that possibility. Classical logic, The kind that says something is either true or false, never both, is simply wrong about these edge cases. The strength? It takes the paradox seriously on its own terms instead of explaining it away. If the sentence really does produce a contradiction, maybe the contradiction is just real. The weakness is enormous. If you allow true contradictions, you potentially allow anything. Classical logic has a principle called explosion. From a contradiction, you can logically prove any statement whatsoever. Most mathematicians consider allowing true contradictions to be too dangerous a cure. Theory 4. The sentence oscillates. It flickers between true and false. Some theorists have suggested a dynamic model. The sentence isn't stuck. It's cycling. True, then false, then true, then false. Like a light switch someone is flipping very fast. This is more of an intuition than a formal theory, but it captures something real about how the sentence feels. There's a rhythm to the contradiction, a back-and-forth quality, not a frozen state, but a perpetual motion. The weakness is that classical logic doesn't have a flickering truth value. You'd need to build an entirely new kind of logic to make this formal. Some researchers have tried. It's still open, but we can say something meaningful about where the evidence points that Tarski's solution, the levels of truth approach, is the most practically successful. It's the framework that allows mathematics to function without constantly bumping into self-referential explosions. It works. Mathematicians use it. It's been stress-tested for almost a century, but here's the important caveat. Tarski's approach doesn't explain the paradox. It quarantines it. It says, inside our formal system, we have rules that prevent this sentence from being formed. Problem avoided. The paradox still exists. In natural language, in informal reasoning, in any system flexible enough to allow self-reference. And what Gödel showed us is that the paradox isn't just a quirky edge case. It's a fundamental feature of logic itself. Any sufficiently powerful logical system, any system capable of talking about itself, will contain statements that are true but unprovable. That's not a bug that smarter mathematicians can fix. It's a structural property of logic. The incompleteness is built in. Think about what that means. We want mathematics to be complete, to be able to prove everything that's true. Gödel proved that's impossible. We want mathematics to be consistent, to never prove a contradiction. Gödel showed that if it is consistent, it can't prove its own consistency. You can have consistent, or you might be able to get complete, but you cannot have both, not completely, not provably, not within the system itself. The hidden truth at the center of this mystery is this. Logic is powerful enough to describe its own limits, but not powerful enough to overcome them. The liar's paradox isn't a flaw in how we think. It's a window into the actual shape of truth. And the shape is stranger than we assumed. Section 6. Conclusion. Let's come back to where we started. This statement is a lie. 5 words. Ancient origin. Still unresolved. What this documentary case reveals, when you follow the trail from Epimenides on Crete to Freya in Germany, to Gödel in Vienna, to Turing in England, is that one self-referential sentence was carrying an enormous secret. The secret that logic has edges that we tend to think of truth as a solid surface. Either something is true or it isn't. The universe doesn't allow halfway. The universe doesn't allow contradictions, but the liar's paradox suggests otherwise. It suggests that when a statement turns back on itself, when it becomes its own subject, something breaks. Not because we made an error, because the system itself reaches a boundary it cannot cross. Gödel used that insight to show that mathematics will always have blind spots. True things it cannot prove. Questions it cannot answer from inside itself. Turing used it to show that computers will always have problems they cannot solve. Not because they're too slow, because the problems are logically self-defeating. And philosophy is still arguing about whether any statement can be genuinely both true and false. None of these cases are closed. Here's the thought I keep returning to. Every system of rules we build, every legal code, every ethical framework, every scientific theory, is built on the assumption that its foundations are solid, that the rules work all the way down. The liar's paradox says, be careful. Any system powerful enough to be interesting is powerful enough to ask questions it cannot answer. Any language expressive enough to say something meaningful is expressive enough to say something that breaks itself. That's not a reason to stop building systems. It's a reason to stay humble about them. And maybe that's the most important thing a 2,600-year-old Greek riddle can teach us. The universe doesn't owe us clean answers. Sometimes the most honest thing a question can do is reveal that the question itself is the problem.